BS-Free Witchcraft is a production of the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network. Nerd and Tie produces podcasts ranging from actual play to true crime, and you can find more at nerdandtie.com or join our Discord by going to nerdandtie.com/Discord. Welcome to BS-Free Witchcraft, your monthly guide to the modern witchcraft movement. Mine's a lot of the usual, bullshit. I'm your host, Trey Dorn. We've made it to February of 2025, and this episode's going to play a little loose. It's not that we don't have direction or stuff I'm going to talk about so much as we're not going to necessarily stick to one topic this episode. And the reason is just simply that there's a couple of things that are really on my mind that I really wanted to talk about, and I don't have enough to fill them all out into their own episode right now. That's not to say that I'll never fill them out into their own episode, or that I won't do a more in-depth coverage of this topic, but there's just a couple of things, and I don't feel like they're their own episode yet, and they are pressing on my mind. Before we get to that, though, I do want to mention something. Right now, when this episode comes out on Patreon on Valentine's Day, and it'll come out publicly on the 22nd, on February 28th through March 2nd, I will be at a convention. I'll be at EverCon, which is a tabletop gaming convention in Wausau, Wisconsin. Well, technically Rothschild, just right outside of Wausau. And yeah, you can find me. I will be having copies of my novels. I will have copies of Super Awesome Action Heroes, the tabletop role-playing game system I created. I'll have copies of the whole backlog of unconventional comics. Obviously, we don't have a print edition yet of Peregrine Lake, so I would have that if that existed, but it does not exist. Also, if you like Peregrine Lake, though, Ethan Flanagan, the artist of Peregrine Lake, will also be at EverCon. You can also meet them there. So that's neat. Again, it's I'll put a link to the website for the convention in the show notes, and if you happen to be in the central Wisconsin area the weekend of February 28th through March 2nd, 2025, you will find me there. So come and say hi if you want, or don't. It's up to you. I don't make your life decisions. Anyways, on to the episode. For those of you who remember last month's episode, if you're listening to this years down the road, you might not listen to this stuff in the correct order, but last month's episode, I covered the telepathy tapes, and I've gotten a lot of pushback on that. There's some people big mad in the comments on Spotify, and it's just frustrating. It is just frustrating because, like, the thing, people are very much wound into their feelings on this topic, and it's obvious that we're not necessarily dealing with people who have, like, necessarily taken the most rational tack. And I understand it's an emotional thing. It's an emotional topic, and I knew that, like, I was going to rankle some feathers with that episode, but there's just stuff. A lot of people take an objection to my comments. I didn't think it would be controversial to say that autistic people don't have superpowers. I didn't think it, like, actual, like, comic book superpowers. I didn't think it would be a hot take to say that autistic people aren't secretly telepaths. But for some people, that was spicy. And I got like people coming into comments. One person claimed there were over 100 peer-reviewed double-blind studies of documented telepathy between persons with autism and their quote-unquote interpreter, measured by an independent scientist with both subjects in different locations, sometimes different zip codes. Like, this person said this. They don't cite a single one of these studies. As far as I can tell, these studies don't exist. Like, this is the real problem. Like, this is a witchcraft podcast. I don't know if you've noticed. I believe in witchcraft. I believe in magic. I believe in all kind of, like, kooky ass shit. Like, it's I believe in things that most rational human beings think are patently ridiculous. But I also get incredibly skeptical when people tell me that, like, they are psychic or telepaths. And is that hypocritical? And I don't think it is. Because the reason why I doubt them is because I feel like a lot of people are falling into their confirmation bias. Like, they want it to be true. And, like, because as we discussed in that previous episode, like, I don't think that the people doing the telepathy tapes are trying to scam anyone. I think they believe in what they're doing. It's just that the thing that they're doing isn't what they think it is that they're doing. Like, there is no double blind that shows that the spelling method works. And in fact, there's plenty of evidence to say that the that it doesn't work, and that you're getting things through the interpreter. Or at least there are things guided by the interpreter. Like, I'm not saying that all communication through the tool necessarily, but again, in a double blind, it has been shown, it has never passed the double blind. So, like, I think their methodology is flawed. Like, that's the real thing. I think their methods are flawed, which is giving them a conclusion which is false. But they're all excited about it and trying to push this off. And so that's, like, I don't think there's malice behind what's being done by the telepathy tapes. I just think they're wrong about what's actually happening there. But most of the time, but we can't deny the fact that they're making money off of promoting this, right? Like, they are making money off of promoting this. And whenever I see that, I get squicky. Now, I'm from the 90s. Like, there's a bias of which is my age about, like, taking money for witchcraft and stuff. Because when you have to understand, a lot of people's exposure to the stuff were like professional psychics, which professional psychics are a scam. There's a reason why when you see fictional shows that portray, like, a real witch acting as a professional psychic, they're never actually using their witchcraft. They're using, like, the standard scam techniques to do it. Like, that's a trope because that's what's actually happening. Like there's nothing wrong. Like, people who do tarot readings for money, that's fine. Like, I'm not actually being critical of that. Like, I think when we talk about, like, psychic readings in certain settings, we have to look at what we mean, because it's very easy to do a number of pretty mundane techniques to convince someone that you're psychic. Magicians, hypnotists, but mentalists. I meant mentalists, not hypnotists. I apologize. Mentalists, magicians, like, they have been using these techniques, using for suggestion, using cold reading, using, like, to pretend to be psychic. Like, the entire spiritualism movement is a cliche for, like, the number of stuff that, like, professional mediums would do to pretend and fake a haunting and things like that. So, like, usually if someone's out there telling me that they're psychic or something like that, and it's because they're doing it professionally, because it's so easy to scam people with that, I instantly go, no, this is bullshit. And I am a person who believes in things like, to some degree, of clairvoyance, who believes in, I have had weird stuff happen to me. Like, I have had a shared dream with someone who was sleeping in the same bed, where we had a shared dream, including, like, a thing where they described a person who does not exist, but who this is not remarkable, and no one wants to hear about your dreams. Sorry about this, but there's a reoccurring character in my dreams who's been there since childhood. It's, if you want me to get down to what I think it is, it's just a representation of a certain part of my own personality, whatever. But I don't tell people about this person or what they look like, because the person who shared the stream saw and met this person and directly described this person back to me. And again, a bunch of interactions. So it's like, I believe in weird stuff like this. Like, I believe that it's real. My personal experiences have led me to believe. But first off, I don't know. In my experience, like, real experiences aren't consistent enough to make a living off of. Maybe I'm wrong. But secondly, I know there's a bunch of scam techniques to fake this stuff, right? Like, there's a reason why no one's ever taken never took the late James Randi's prizes. Like, if this stuff was easy and replicable, like, it wouldn't be. Yeah. So there's that. Because that's when I say things like, I don't believe people when they tell me they're psychic, because almost everyone who volunteers to me randomly that they're psychic falls into this camp of hucksters and people like on TikTok. Here's my favorite thing on TikTok. This one psychic on TikTok. She's talking on this thing about how she could see an aura in a photograph that she saw. Like, she saw someone's aura over like a video. Like, she was offering to read people's auras over like a FaceTime call. Now, I want everyone who knows how technology works to take a deep breath. Okay? I obviously can't use my phone because I use my phone for filming, but I've got this iPad here. This is a standard LCD screen, right? Screens don't work the way regular light works. And I know that a lot of people like know this kind of vaguely, but I don't think that everyone thinks about this. So let me explain a couple of things. First off, you see, if you're watching the video version, you can see that there is a kind of goldenrod painted like yellowish wall behind me on one side, because my office is in the most garish colors ever painted. That, as you're seeing it right now, if you're watching the video version, you're not actually seeing yellow. It looks yellow. Your brain is perceiving yellow. As far as your entire, like, visual system is concerned, that's yellow. Except, it's not really. You see, the screen of any device that we use is composed of 3 colors. Just 3. Red, green, and blue. RGB. And that's because, besides, like, black and white, like, those are the 3 colors your eyes can actually see. Every other color you see is your brain taking a best guess based on how those 3 little receptors, like those 3 color receptors in your eyes, are seeing things. So, yellow is kind of hitting the red, kind of hitting the green. Like, it's lighting those up a little bit, so your brain goes, oh, that's a color that's in between by this amount. Like, when actual yellow light hits your eyes, when the wavelength of yellow light hits your eyes, it's kind of hitting those 2 receptors, so your brain's going, oh, that's a color that's in between, must be yellow. So, your phone, your device, the screen you're looking at right now, rather than emit every color in the rainbow, just goes, I don't need to say make yellow, I just need to see your eyes just need to see the same amount of interference on both the red and green receptors that it gets when it sees actual yellow. So it's faking the yellow. So this color right here next to my head, not actually yellow, but as far as your brain is concerned, it is. Why is this important? Well, if an aura, there's also the degree of the camera I'm using. The camera I'm using is only designed to see the visual spectrum, right? And it doesn't actually hit everything the exact same way as the human eye, which is why if you pull up this might not work. If you pull up a remote control sometimes, and I have never tried it with this camera before. Apparently it doesn't work on this camera, because It's too bright in my office. You can sometimes, on an infrared remote, light up a camera. And what is an invisible color to your naked eye will show up as white. Anything that the camera can see is what the camera records. It's only going to do that with visible light, and for frequencies that aren't visible to us, it's still going to record that within the visible light spectrum, right? So like the infrared light from a remote control will show up as white light if the camera can see that color at all. So those are the two devices between you and another person on a FaceTime call. That's not even talking about all the data compression and decompression of an image. Like when you get a solid color or things like that, like the computer's going to block it out to like try to save as many, bits as possible. Like data compression kicks in as well. So all this stuff is happening. Yet this woman on TikTok comes and tells me that she can see people's auras over a FaceTime call. And claims that these are physically inherent things. It's even better, she said she could see it on a recording. That was remarkable to me because, like, at least if you're doing a live connection, you can go up with the excuse to me that, no, I'm not really seeing the aura. My brain is interpreting an aura because I made a psychic connection to the person. I'm not going to necessarily believe you, but, like, you can, that would be a explanation as for why because if auras could show up on camera, we would all see them. You would see them around, everyone would see them. Everyone. Because what the camera can pick up gets put into the file as visible light, and then the phone can only broadcast 3 colors. So, like, so there's no way, if it's an actual physical thing around a person, for you to be able to see it over a video call or in a video, right? Definitely not in a recorded video. Now, if you want to claim that you make a psychic connection over, a distance, and then your brain is creating the aura is effectively a hallucination constructed by your own psychic vision, right? Like, you can get around it, sort of. I don't mean to rationalize this for someone who's trying to scam people and come up with an excuse, but that is the most, like, it's the only way around it, right? It's the only way around it. Yet this person would claim that they could see auras not only over live streams, but also over recordings. And that's not a live connection. And there's no way for the device that records it or the device that transmits it, which is why it is a scam. But people will just lie all the time and take advantage of vulnerable people. And again, and I said this way back in like the Witches for Hire and like the Leah Steele episode, like that 2-parter years ago. I said then that I don't have a problem with people charging for witchcraft services. Like, if someone wants to do tarot or lithomancy, like, there's labor involved there. And tarot's really fun because, like, in many ways, even if there isn't any magic involved, it is a really interesting exercise to look inward and figure out what you're feeling and kind of question your own intuition, right? The cards are not so much, and the cards aren't magic. They're playing cards, just in a form that people don't really use anymore for playing cards. It started as playing cards, but it is a tool to ask yourself questions and understand your own intuition about a situation, right? Like, that's what tarot cards gives you is. And so even if there's nothing actually inherently psychic or magical about the actual cards and the order that they go down on the table, by questioning your own intuition, you may connect into something larger there, which is why tarot is a really good tool for introspection and understanding the self, which is good. So, like, please don't think that I am, crapping on everyone who ever, like, sells services to, like, tell your fortune. I'm not. But, like, the vast majority of people who go out there telling you that they're psychic are doing it for personal profitable gain and cannot be trusted. Also, like, a tarot reader is saying, hey, we're going to do this tarot reading. Like, there's an action, there's a thing. Like, you're a participant in that reading. Same with, like, listen, like, you're participating. It's not someone just sitting across the table from you and going, trust me, bro. Trust me. And give me your PayPal. Like, there's a difference. There's labor involved in, like, a cartomancy reading of any kind. There's labor involved in a lithomancy reading. Like, there's a thing that's happening that, like, you can interpret together with the reader. Like, it's a communication, it's a dialogue, it's working out, and, like, that has, like, a benefit and is good. Like, meanwhile, if I'm going to tell you that I'm going to go talk to your dead husband, I'm getting a letter. The first name starts with a letter. It's in the first half of it starts with the letter before M. It's in the first half of it's in the second. All right. So it starts between, I'm getting an S sound. It's Sam. It's like a Sam sounding name, like Steven. That's your father's cousin's brother-in-law. Your father's cousin's brother-in-law, Steven. He's got a message for you. It's a voicemail because he's not dead. Okay. Like, it's just frustrating. The other thing I wanted to talk about, because that was just the first thing. The other thing is, and I'm going to touch on some of the stuff I just talked about, like, in brief, and I touched on briefly, probably in a longer episode someday where I'll give the full history and, like, techniques and all of that stuff. But it's just, like, I really wanted to explain where I was coming from with those statements, because I rankled some feathers, and I knew I kind of might have, and I tried to, like, shove that note into the final release version that wasn't on the Patreon version of, like, a little more explanation, but, like, people, you push back against something that gives people, like, an emotional response, and bad stuff happens. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is just my frustration about how people react to being shown something that is contrary to their assumptions or beliefs. And it's just how we really need to be open to information that goes against what we want to be true. A post from a year ago got reblogged on my Tumblr. Someone got very mad and up in their feelings about being told that Lilith exclusively comes from Jewish folklore. If you need a review on that, I'm not going to talk about the full details behind that in this episode, because I already did that episode. There's a whole episode on Lilith in this podcast if you want to hear me talk about that entire thing. All right? Go back to that one. Then come back here if you're concerned or have questions. And it's this person who, yet again, like, well, first off, like, they reblogged a post that was not in response to them. It was in response to some other random person. So they grabbed the post from a year ago in which I told someone that, no, they were wrong, and here's my Lilith episode to explain. Because I didn't feel like, whatever, a year ago, the one random day, I didn't feel like going through the full details of the entire history again. I just like the podcast, because I do that sometimes. If people ask me about something or insistent about something that I've already done, like, a whole freaking 30-minute episode on, I'm not going to explain it again. I'll just link them to the other time I explained it. And this person comes in hot saying, oh, I'm not listening to any podcast. Like, again, this is not the person the original response was to. This is a random stranger who did not have to interact with my post at all. I just want to, again, this person volunteered to have this conversation. And, like, just was like, you're wrong. I'm not going to listen to any of your evidence. Quite bold. And, like, I responded, it's like, no, look, I'm you don't have to be here. I'm right. Here's I linked to the podcast a second time, this time to link things. So I gave the little preview image. And the title card for that episode is, of course, the Bernie relief with the big arrow pointing to it saying, not Lilith. And this person said, you just posted an image of like the pre-Jewish, pre-Judaism Lilith image. And I was like, no, trap card activated. And I did give the whole detailed history of just a portion of what's in the episode, just the Bernie relief stuff, right? Just the Bernie. It's a Resh Kagel. It's a Resh Kagel. We know that the Bernie relief is not Lilith and that it's a Resh Kagel. I mean, first off, because Lilith doesn't exist until like the 10th century CE. But I broke it all down, and the person just stopped reblogging and shut down because I was clearly right, and they were not ready to come to the conversation. But I know that person, my response was not for the person I was responding to. It was to passersby. It was to other people who might be in doubt, who might need the information that I have, who might be questioning, because the person who I was responding to had already locked in on their belief. And the best case scenario was that I nudged them a little bit in the right direction, right? Like, it's the best case scenario is that I got them an inch closer. Like, it's very unlikely that I changed their mind, because people don't change their mind. Like all these people who are responding to me in the telepathy tapes episode. I provided evidence within that episode to make my point, right? Like, I talked about it. I didn't just say, trust me, bro. Like, I talked about how there have been no double-blind studies. I even mentioned the name of the guy who came up with the test, and really easy to look up and verify stuff. I linked to an article explaining how spelling had overall been shown to has never been proven to be effective as a communications tool. I provided sources and evidence, but these people who are responding don't want to read that. They don't want to see it. Be it the people who show up in my things about Lilith, be it people with law of attraction, be it people who are angry about the telepathy tapes, these people they don't want to hear it. And we make these episodes not for them, but for the people who who haven't made up their minds, who haven't locked in their decision, who otherwise can be brought around. And those are the people who I make these episodes for, right? I make it for people who are also already agreeing with me, who think I'm funny. I make it for them, and I make it for people who probably already agree with me, and I make it for people who are undecided. I'm not making these episodes for people who have already made up their mind, because the people who've already made up their mind will never have their mind changed by me. They might have their mind changed by something, but it's never going to be some random non-binary person in their home office ranting into a microphone once a month. It's not going to happen. That's not how the world works. That's not how humans work. And it's frustrating. And I think it's important that recognizing that people are like this, that it is entirely possible for both you and for me to do this ourselves, to ignore evidence of really obvious stuff. It's real easy. It's real easy to let our own assumptions guide us and ignore evidence to the contrary. Our brains want to do that because we want to think we're right. And so it's frustrating when other people do it, but it's also really important that we don't do it ourselves. And so that's the thing I wanted. That's the other thing I wanted to say was it's super important that we don't do things just we take in all evidence, not just the stuff that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. And it's hard. You'll want to fight against it. There are many times in my life where I've wanted to fight against it, where I didn't want certain things to be true. But You have to. Or else, what else have we got? All right, Magicians, let's wrap things up. Thank you for letting me go on this little bit of a rant, a little bit of terror. I think there was some valuable stuff in here. I just didn't feel like either of those two topics was a full episode right now, but I wanted to talk about both of them equally. I went a little bit more on the first one, but yeah. I just want us to be better. So with that in mind, I do want to thank everybody who supports me on Patreon. This show exists because great folks like you are contributing to the Patreon every month. There's some great benefits for just $1 a month. You get episodes like this a whole week early. And then there's some higher tiers where you can get bonuses with like my ebooks and like, things like that. And people at the $10 level get a shout out. So I want to give a shout out this month to Lindsay Dosey, Bruce Norville, Courtney, Claire Dennis, and Pamela Staryak. And everybody who contributes at any level, I just want you to know that you're great and you're amazing. Also, there are free memberships on the Patreon, which is also a great way to get big, important news about me ahead of time, because it's one of my avenues to communicate with you guys. And so there is a free tier. You don't get any special backer rewards, but you get occasional messages from me when something important's happening. So, and you can find my Patreon at patreon.com/TRAEGORN. That is patreon.com/TRAEGORN. And I want to thank everybody who contributes, and I hope the numbers have gone down a little bit over the last year, but obviously the world is a nightmare, and I understand. So, a free membership is still free. So, and that helps all of us. Besides that, if you want to follow me on social media, that's also great. Remember, you can find me primarily on a couple of places. As long as TikTok's there, I am on TikTok at TRAEGORN. You can also find me on Tumblr at TRAEGORN.tumblr.com and TRAEGORN.bsky.social for my Blue Sky. TikTok, Tumblr, and Blue Sky are my big three. If you want to follow the show on other social media, there are ways. I do have a Threads. I do have technically an Instagram, but I never use it. If you want to follow the show on Facebook, it's got a very different URL. It is facebook.com/BSFreeWitchcraft. Or if you want to follow me personally on Facebook, it is facebook.com/TRAEDORN. Don't go to my personal page. I will not accept your friend request. That's where I talk to my mom, just to be clear. So, again, if you want to talk to me directly, though, there are a couple of great places you can do that. First off, we do have a forum. The Nerd and Tie Podcast Network, which we are a part of, has a forum at nerdandtie.social. It's a little quiet, but I check it religiously. So if you want to talk to me, you make a post there, I will see it. Also, we have a Discord, and you can find an invite for that at nerdandtie.com/Discord. And both of those are great. Like, if you want to talk directly to me, those are great places to find me. We have a lot of other shows on the network. Casual Trek did a very great episode on the Section 31 movie. You can find them at all the shows at nerdandtie.com. There's also, Hex Positive, the other Witchcraft podcast show hosted by Brina Guerin. It's also phenomenal. That's at nerdandtie.com/hex. We also, by the time this comes out publicly, Patreon people will get this before that episode comes out. By the time this comes out publicly, we will have just wrapped Campaign 2 on Stormwood and Associates. The big finale is going to come out like the day before this. So that's the actual play show that I'm the primary GM on, and it was finishing a 152 episode campaign. Nothing big. It's big. It's only the second time I've finished a campaign in my life, because usually things petered out growing up. So I'm really proud of it. I think it's a fun, great show. You can find that at nerdandtie.com/Stormwood. So there's a lot of great stuff on the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network that you can check out and enjoy. And come hang out with us on the Discord, on the forums, and talk to me on social media. And with that, Magicians, remember, you can find me in Wausau, Wisconsin, February 28th through March 2nd, 2025 at EverCon. And that, I think, wraps it up. So with that, The world is terrible right now. Everything is pretty awful. And I want you to remember, Magicians, the motto of this show is and has always been dirt in our fingernails, brick in our hands. And I want you to remember that, because fight ain't over yet. Talk to you guys next month.